Snow fell thick enough to suffocate sound itself. The temperature had dropped to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit 3 hours ago. Now it felt colder. Staff Sergeant Kira Mercer pressed her back against the crumbling, concrete wall of what used to be a border checkpoint. The structure had been abandoned for 4 years, ever since budget cuts closed the remote station along the Washington-Canada border. Now it served as her temporary grave, or her killing ground. She hadn't decided which yet. The wind screamed through gaps in the masonry, carrying snow that stung like needles against any exposed skin. Her breath came in controlled bursts, each exhale a calculated risk. Too much visible vapor would give away her exact position. Too little oxygen would slow her reaction time. Kira had been separated from her unit for 7 hours. Not accidentally. She'd volunteered to split off during the firefight at the logging camp, drawing enemy attention while her surviving teammates extracted the wounded. Command had protested through the radio static. She'd cut transmission before they could order her back. Some decisions weren't up for debate. The mercenary forces had taken the bait exactly as she'd predicted. 14 men heavily armed tracking her through the forest. She'd left just enough traces. A broken branch here, a boot print there. Visible enough for amateurs to follow. Subtle enough to make professionals overconfident. Both types were hunting her now. Through the shattered window frame, Kira watched the tree line. The snow created a white curtain that reduced visibility to 30 meters on a good moment. 10 meters when the gusts hit hardest. Perfect conditions for what she had planned. Her rifle lay across her lap. A Barrett MRAD chambered in .338 Lapua Magnum. 11 rounds remaining. She'd fired 6 shots during the initial contact at the logging camp. Each one a kill. The enemy didn't know that yet. They'd heard the suppressed cracks and seen their men drop, but in the chaos and snow, they couldn't be certain of the source. Let them underestimate. Kira's fingers traced the small emblem on her left glove. A wolf's head barely larger than her thumbnail carved into the reinforced leather. She'd made the mark herself 2 years ago during advanced training in Alaska. The instructors had said the Arctic warfare course had a 40% failure rate. She'd finished first in her class. Not because she was the strongest, not because she was the fastest, because she understood something the others didn't. In extreme conditions, victory belonged to whoever could weaponize the environment itself. The checkpoint had been chosen for exactly that reason. 3 walls still intact. One collapsed entirely, giving her multiple exit routes. The roof had caved in on the western side, creating natural blind spots. The floor was concrete, which meant minimal snow accumulation inside, preserving her mobility, while forcing attackers to navigate deeper drifts outside. She'd led them here over 5 kilometers of frozen wilderness. Now they thought they had her cornered. Kira heard voices through the storm. Harsh, confident, careless. They were closing in, spreading out to surround the structure. She counted at least 10 distinct speakers. More than she'd hoped for. Fewer than she'd feared. Manageable. Her hand moved to the radio clipped to her vest. A familiar voice crackled through the static. Master Sergeant Garrett Dawson. The man who had trained her. The man who had believed in her when no one else would. Mercer, what's your status? Kira kept her voice low. 14 hostiles, 10 visible, 4 unaccounted. They're setting up for a siege. Extraction is 90 minutes out. Storm's got everything grounded. Can you hold? Kira almost smiled. I'm not alone, Hawk. A pause on the other end. Then Dawson's voice heavy with something that might have been pride, might have been fear. Titans in position, 400 meters northeast, waiting for my signal. Then God help them. Dawson's transmission cut briefly, then returned. Kira, Webb is with them. Confirm visual from satellite before we lost coverage. Kira's jaw tightened. Colonel Dominic Webb. The name sent ice through her veins that had nothing to do with the temperature. Understood. Don't let it compromise you. Mission first. Always. She killed the transmission. Through a gap in the wall, Kira saw the first silhouette materialize from the snow. Tall, broad-shouldered, carrying a rifle with casual familiarity. He gestured to someone behind him, directing them to flank right. They were coordinating their approach. Good. That meant they'd bunch up during the final assault, trying to overwhelm her position with simultaneous pressure from multiple angles. Standard small unit tactics against a fortified enemy. Kira had trained against those tactics for years. She'd also trained something they didn't know about, something they wouldn't see coming. Her fingers found the symbol on her glove again, pressing twice against the raised leather. Not a nervous habit, a signal. 400 meters northeast, concealed beneath 3 feet of snow, in a collapsed drainage culvert, something received that signal. Titan's ears twitched. The 4-year-old German Shepherd had been waiting in that position for 2 hours, absolutely motionless despite the cold. His double coat provided insulation that would keep him functional for hours more. The snow covering him wasn't just camouflage. It created an insulation layer that preserved his body heat while masking his thermal signature. The vibration from Kira's signal traveled through the frozen ground, too subtle for humans to detect, but perfectly clear to Titan's sensory processing. He understood. Hold position. Await further instructions. His dark eyes remained fixed on the distant checkpoint, watching, waiting, ready. 6 months earlier. Fort Liberty, North Carolina. Formerly known as Fort Bragg, the briefing room smelled like coffee and tension. Kira stood at attention while 12 pairs of eyes evaluated her. 11 of those eyes belonged to men who had already decided she didn't belong. The 12th pair belonged to Master Sergeant Garrett Dawson, and they held something different: recognition. Staff Sergeant Mercer, the unit commander, began flipping through her file. Arctic Warfare Qualified, K9 Tactical Integration Certified, marksmanship scores in the 99th percentile. He looked up. Impressive on paper. Thank you, sir. I wasn't finished. He closed the file. This unit was commanded by Colonel Dominic Webb for 8 years before his departure 18 months ago. He left big shoes to fill. We don't need paper qualifications. We need soldiers who can perform. I understand, sir. Do you... A voice from the back. One of the operators. Sergeant First Class Colton Reeves, she'd learn later. Sandy hair, easy smile, the kind of man who made jokes to mask something darker underneath. Because word is you fight with a dog, like some kind of police officer. Scattered laughter. Kira didn't react. Titan isn't a police dog, she said evenly. He's a tactical combat unit trained for independent operation in extreme environments. A dog's a dog, Reeves shrugged. Cute trick for YouTube videos. Not sure how it plays in actual combat. More laughter, louder this time. Kira felt the familiar burn of anger in her chest. She'd faced this her entire career. The doubt, the dismissal, the assumption that a woman couldn't possibly excel in this world, that her achievements must be inflated, her capabilities overstated. She'd learned to channel that anger into fuel. Sergeant Reeves, she said, her voice calm, how many confirmed kills do you have in sub-zero conditions? The laughter stopped. Reeves' smile flickered. That's classified. Mine isn't. 17. All in temperatures below -10 Fahrenheit. 12 of those were in whiteout conditions where visibility was under 20 meters. She paused. With Titan providing tactical support, our combined elimination rate on training exercises exceeds 94%. Without him, my rate drops to 71%. Silence. The dog makes me better, Kira continued. Not because I need protection, because partnership creates capabilities that neither of us possesses alone. That's not a trick. That's tactical evolution. The commander cleared his throat. Noted, Sergeant. You'll be assigned to reconnaissance operations effective immediately. Dismissed. As the room emptied, Dawson approached her. At 58, he moved with the careful economy of a man whose body had been pushed past its limits too many times. 3 wars. Countless operations. More scars than he could count. But his eyes were sharp. Always sharp. You handled that well, he said quietly. I've had practice. Dawson nodded. They'll come around, or they won't. Either way, you do your job. That's the plan. He studied her for a moment. You know why I recommended you for this unit? Because of the Alaska scores. No, Dawson's voice dropped. Because of how you connected with Titan. In 30 years of military service, I've never seen a bond form that fast. That deep. He paused. My son had that same connection with him. Kira's breath caught. She knew the story. Everyone in the K-9 program knew. Kyle Dawson, Titan's original handler, killed in Afghanistan 3 years ago during an ambush that shouldn't have happened. Bad intelligence, worse timing, a routine patrol that turned into a massacre. Titan had been the only survivor. After Kyle died, Dawson continued, Titan refused to work with anyone, attacked 2 handlers, nearly killed a third. The program was ready to put him down. But you stopped them. I convinced them to give him one more chance. Dawson's jaw tightened. When you showed up in Alaska, I knew. Something about you. He recognized it. Kira remembered her first day at the Arctic Warfare Facility. The warnings from other handlers. Stay away from the Black Shepherd. He's damaged, dangerous, beyond saving. She'd ignored them. She'd walked into his kennel alone, unarmed, and sat on the cold concrete floor without speaking. For 6 hours, she'd simply existed in his space. No commands, no expectations, no agenda, just presence. Titan had watched her the entire time, those steady eyes tracking every breath, every micro movement, evaluating, deciding. At hour 5, he'd stood, walked across the kennel, and lay down beside her. Not because she'd commanded it, because he'd chosen it. He lost someone, Kira had told Dawson later. He needed to know I understood that kind of loss. Do you? The question had hung in the air between them. Kira had nodded slowly. My father was a Marine, Captain Thomas Mercer. When I was 12, he deployed on a classified mission. They told us he was killed in action, but they never recovered his body. No funeral, no closure, just gone. Dawson had said nothing, but his eyes had softened with understanding. Titan doesn't need a handler, Kira had continued. He needs a partner, someone who knows what it means to keep fighting when you've lost everything that matters. From that day forward, they'd trained together, lived together, learned each other's patterns until communication became instinct, until trust became absolute, until partnership became something that transcended species. The memory faded as voices grew louder outside the checkpoint. Present day, the storm, the siege. Check the perimeter. The command cut through the wind, sharp with authority. Kira recognized the voice from archived recordings she'd studied before the mission. Dominic Webb. Colonel Dominic Webb, United States Army, retired, decorated veteran of conflicts she couldn't officially name, former commander of the most elite reconnaissance unit in special operations, and traitor. 18 months ago, Webb had disappeared, along with classified intelligence that had cost 3 American operatives their lives. The official story called it a mental break, combat stress, a decorated soldier who'd simply cracked under pressure. Kira knew better. Webb hadn't cracked. He'd calculated. 30 years of service had given him access to secrets worth millions on the black market. And when a buyer came calling with enough zeros, Webb had made his choice. Money over country, profit over honor. Now he commanded Black Ridge Solutions, a mercenary outfit that operated in the shadows where legitimate military couldn't go. They took contracts from anyone willing to pay. And tonight they were transporting something across the Canadian border. Something worth killing for. Thermal's useless in this weather. Another voice, younger, frustrated. Wind chills masking everything. Then use your eyes. Webb's response was ice. One woman, probably injured, definitely out of options. She holed up here because she had nowhere else to go. Kira almost smiled at that. Let him believe it. She watched through the window crack as Webb coordinated his men. Even in the darkness and snow, she could see the precision in his movements. The economy of motion that came from decades of experience. He was good, but he'd made a critical error. He was hunting her like she was prey. She wasn't prey. Colonel. Colton Reeves materialized from the snow beside Webb. The same sandy hair, the same easy smile. But now there was something else in his eyes. Something that made Kira's stomach turn. Anticipation. Status. Perimeters established. 12 men in position. Burnett and Cade are setting up the incendiaries. We can flush her out in 3 minutes. Webb nodded slowly. She's not ordinary, Colton. I read her file before she joined my old unit. Arctic Warfare Specialist. K-9 Tactical Integration. He paused. Where's the dog? No sign. Maybe she lost it in the initial contact. Maybe. Webb didn't sound convinced. Or maybe it's out there right now, waiting. It's a dog, sir, not a tactical asset. The Alaska program would disagree. Webb turned to face the checkpoint, his eyes scanning the structure. Never underestimate what proper training can create. I made that mistake with Mercer herself. Assumed she was just another quota filling a slot. He shook his head. She's not. She's dangerous. Dangerous or not, she's one woman against 14. And her dog, if it's even still alive, is just an animal. Webb said nothing, but something in his posture suggested doubt. Inside the checkpoint, Kira processed what she'd heard. Reeves, working with Webb. The realization hit like a physical blow. Colton Reeves, the man who'd mocked her on day one, the man who'd questioned her capabilities at every turn, the man she'd slowly come to tolerate, if not trust. He was the leak. He was the reason the ambush at the logging camp had been so perfectly timed. The reason 2 of her teammates were dead, and 2 more were fighting for their lives in a medevac helicopter that couldn't land because of the storm. Reeves had sold them out. Kira's grip tightened on her rifle. For a moment, just a moment, she imagined putting a round through his skull, watching him drop into the snow. Justice delivered in .338 caliber, but emotion was a luxury she couldn't afford. Not yet. She touched the wolf emblem on her glove again. A new pattern this time. 3 quick taps. Pause. 2 long presses. Move to secondary position. Prepare for coordinated assault. 400 meters away, Titan received the signal. His muscles tense beneath the snow. But he didn't move. Not yet. Soon. 2 years earlier. Alaska. Arctic Warfare Training Center. The wind that day had been colder than anything Kira had ever experienced. -30 degrees. Gusts hitting 40 miles per hour. Visibility dropping to 0 during whiteout conditions. Perfect training weather, Dawson had called it. Kira stood in the snow beside Titan, watching their instructor demonstrate communication protocols. Not verbal commands, not hand signals. Something deeper. Dogs process information differently than humans. Dawson explained, his breath forming ice crystals in the air. But the outcome is similar. They identify targets, evaluate vulnerabilities, execute elimination. Your job isn't to control Titan. Your job is to complement him. How? Kira asked. Dawson smiled. It was the first time she'd seen him smile since she'd arrived. Trust. The training had been brutal. First week, learning Titan's capabilities. He could detect humans at 300 meters in ideal conditions, 100 meters in a blizzard. He could distinguish between friendly and hostile targets based on scent profiles and body language. He could operate completely silent. No barking, no whining, no sound at all. Second week, communication without speech. Dawson taught Kira a system of ground vibrations, body positions, and environmental markers that Titan had been trained to recognize. But more important than signals was trust. In combat, you won't always be able to give him directions, Dawson had explained during one evening session. Both of them huddled around a small heater in a tent while wind battered the walls. You need to trust that he'll make the right tactical decisions on his own. Kira had been skeptical. How can a dog make tactical decisions? How can you? The question had stopped her cold. You assess threats based on patterns you've learned, Dawson continued. Recognition of danger, calculation of risk, selection of response. Titan does the same thing. His brain processes information differently than yours, but the outcome is similar. He identifies targets, evaluates vulnerabilities, and eliminates threats. Third week. Live exercises in conditions simulating combat. Dawson had hired civilian contractors to play enemy combatants, tracking Kira and Titan through the wilderness. The rules were simple. If the hunters found them, Kira failed. If they neutralized the hunters, she passed. The first exercise had been a disaster. Kira had tried to control every aspect of Titan's movement, signaling him constantly, coordinating their positions like pieces on a chessboard. They'd been detected within 2 hours, surrounded within 3. Dawson had stopped the exercise, pulling Kira aside. You're fighting against him instead of with him, he'd said bluntly. Titan knows what to do. Your job isn't to command him. Your job is to complement him. The second exercise, Kira had tried a different approach. She'd stopped thinking of herself as the primary operator with a K9 asset. Instead, she'd conceptualized them as two equal units with different capabilities working toward the same objective. Titan excelled at close-range detection and elimination. Kira excelled at long-range precision and strategic positioning. Together, they created overlapping fields of coverage that neither could achieve alone. That exercise had lasted 36 hours. The hunters never found them. 3 different teams tried. All 3 were neutralized. Fourth week. Advanced coordination under extreme conditions. The critical lesson came during a night exercise in whiteout conditions. Kira had lost visual contact with Titan completely. The snow was too thick, the darkness too deep. She couldn't see him, couldn't signal him, couldn't coordinate directly. She'd panicked initially, calling his name despite training protocols. Nothing. Then she'd remembered. He didn't need her commands. He needed her to do her job while he did his. Kira had stopped trying to locate Titan and focused on what she could control. Her own position, her own field of fire, her own tactical assessment. 10 minutes later, she'd heard a noise behind her. Turned to find Titan sitting calmly 2 meters away, having eliminated 3 simulated enemy combatants that had been approaching her position from her blind side. He'd done his job without her input. She'd done hers without his. That was partnership. The final test came at the end of week 5. Dawson had arranged for an entire platoon, 30 soldiers, hunting them through 50 kilometers of Arctic wilderness. Time limit, 72 hours, mission, survive and eliminate at least half the hunting force. Kira and Titan had eliminated 28 targets in 41 hours. The remaining soldiers never found them. After the exercise, Dawson had personally pinned the Arctic Warfare Qualification badge to Kira's uniform. The ceremony was small, just the program's instructors. No fanfare, no publicity. That's how she preferred it. Most partnerships take years to develop, Dawson had said quietly. You two found it in 5 weeks. Don't waste it. I won't. One more thing. Dawson's voice had dropped. Webb, Colonel Dominic Webb. He was my commanding officer for 6 years. I know how he thinks, how he fights, how he wins. Sir, he's ruthless, brilliant, and he believes absolutely in his own superiority. Dawson had met her eyes. That's his weakness. He'll underestimate you because you're a woman. He'll underestimate Titan because he sees animals as tools, not partners. Use that. Kira had nodded. She hadn't known then that she'd need that advice so soon. Present day. The checkpoint. Webb's patience was evaporating. Burn it, he ordered. I'm done playing games. 2 of his men moved forward carrying improvised incendiaries, bottles filled with accelerant, rags stuffed in the necks, crude but effective. The checkpoint's remaining wooden support beams would ignite easily. Smoke would fill the structure. Kira would have to choose between burning alive or running into their guns. Standard siege tactics. Kira watched them approach through the crack in the wall. Her hand found the rifle, fingers settling on the grip with practiced ease. Not yet. Timing was everything. You hear me in there? Webb had moved closer. His voice carried clearly over the wind. I know you're military. Special operations, probably. They sent you here to stop me. A pause. They sent you here to die. Kira didn't respond. Speech gave away position, revealed emotion, broke concentration. Silence was tactical currency. I've read your file, Mercer, Webb continued. Oh yes, I know exactly who you are. Staff Sergeant Kira Mercer, Arctic Warfare Specialist. Daughter of Captain Thomas Mercer, missing in action, presumed dead. Kira's jaw tightened. How did he know about her father? Did they tell you what really happened to him? Webb asked. Did they tell you why he disappeared? Don't engage, don't react. Don't give him anything. I could tell you, Webb said, almost conversational now. I know things about Thomas Mercer that would change everything you believe. All you have to do is come out. We can talk. One of his men laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. A woman soldier, the laugher called out. You think you're tough. You think they sent you here to prove something, to show equality works. More laughter spreading through the group. Kira had encountered this before. the particular brand of contempt reserved for female combatants. Some men couldn't reconcile the concepts of woman and warrior. Their confusion was her advantage. She let them laugh while her mind calculated ranges, wind speeds, angles of approach. The checkpoint's western wall had a crack near the base, wide enough to sight through, narrow enough to make her difficult to pinpoint. She'd use that for the first shot. The snow was her ally. In clear conditions, muzzle flash would give away her position instantly. But in a blizzard with wind-driven snow creating a near-opaque curtain, even the brightest flash would be diffused, scattered, harder to track. "You come out now, we make it quick," Webb offered. His voice had hardened, the false friendliness gone. "You stay inside, we burn you out. Then we make it slow. Your choice." Kira's hand moved to the concrete floor, two fingers extended, tapping a rhythm against the frozen surface. Long, short, long. The same pattern she'd sent before. Confirmation. Execute. 400 meters away, Titan's body uncoiled, slowly, carefully, each movement calculated to avoid disturbing the snow above him. He'd been trained for exactly this scenario, remaining hidden in extreme weather, then emerging without alerting targets. The drainage culvert opened toward a ridge that would give him a direct approach line to the checkpoint. But Titan didn't move toward the structure. Instead, he circled north, using the terrain to stay below the enemy's sight lines. The storm was his ally. Wind carried his scent away from the targets. Snow muffled the sound of his paws against frozen ground. The white curtain of falling snow made him effectively invisible at any distance greater than 5 meters. He moved like a shadow through negative space, closing the distance, selecting targets. His focused gaze tracked each figure in the darkness, processing information the way he'd been trained. 14 hostiles arranged around the checkpoint, 2 positioned as rear security, backs to his approach vector. Those 2 would die first. Inside the checkpoint, Kira watched the incendiary team approach. One of them lit the rag on his bottle. The flame guttered in the wind but held. He drew back his arm. 3 seconds to throw, 2 seconds to impact, 1 second to ignite. Kira moved, not toward cover, not toward escape, toward the western wall crack. Her rifle came up in a single fluid motion, scope finding the firestarter's center mass, finger touching the trigger. The world compressed to a single point of focus. She exhaled, squeezed. The suppressed crack was almost lost in the wind, but the result was unmistakable. The mercenary's body jerked. The incendiary fell from his fingers. He collapsed into the snow without a sound. His partner spun toward the checkpoint, eyes wide, rifle coming up. Too slow. Kira's second shot caught him mid-turn. He dropped beside his friend. 2 down, 12 to go. The enemy's response was immediate. Automatic fire raked the checkpoint's walls, rounds punching through concrete, sending chips and dust flying through the frozen air. "Contact front," someone screamed. "She's at the west wall. Suppress and advance." Kira was already moving, rolling away from the western crack, finding new cover behind a collapsed support beam. She'd given away her position, necessary to prevent the fire attack, but now they knew where she was, or where she had been. Outside, chaos erupted. The mercenaries were focused entirely on the checkpoint, on the woman inside who had just killed 2 of their own. Every rifle pointed forward, every eye trained on the structure. No one was watching their 6. Titan hit the first rear guard without warning. Nearly 90 pounds of muscle and trained killer, crushing jaw force, complete silence except for the brief impact of bodies hitting snow. The attack was surgical. Throat first, sever the carotid, prevent vocalization, 3 seconds from contact to neutralization. The second guard was turning, some instinct warning him that something was wrong. But by the time his brain processed the threat, Titan was already moving. 12 meters, less than 2 seconds. This kill took slightly longer, 4 seconds. The guard managed to raise his rifle. It didn't help. Titan had been trained to recognize weapons as primary threats. His attack pattern adjusted mid-leap, targeting the gun hand first, disarming before killing. The rifle dropped into the snow. The guard's scream started to form. Never finished. 10 seconds after receiving the execution signal, Titan had eliminated 2 targets and repositioned behind new cover. The main enemy force was still focused forward, still firing at the checkpoint. completely unaware that their tactical situation had just changed fundamentally. They thought they were hunting one isolated sniper. They were wrong on both counts. Webb noticed first, a break in the rhythm of fire from the rear. Brennan, Costa, status. Silence. Brennan Costa report. Still nothing. The prickle of unease ran down his spine. That old combat instinct that had kept him alive through 30 years of warfare. Something was wrong. Tighten up, he barked at his men. Pull back to the tree line. Now, they were professionals. They responded instantly, collapsing their perimeter, moving toward the relative safety of the forest. But they were moving too slow, and Titan was already repositioning for his next attack. Kira watched through a new firing position. She'd moved twice since her initial shots. Standard counter-sniper protocol, never fire from the same position twice. Through her scope, she could see Webb pulling his men back. Smart. He'd recognized the threat, adapted his tactics, but not fast enough. She tracked a mercenary on the right flank, the one with the squad automatic weapon, the most dangerous threat to her mobility if she needed to relocate. Range, 60 meters. Wind, northwest at 30 miles per hour. Lead, minimal at this distance. She fired. The saw gunner dropped. 11 remaining. The formation broke. Mercenaries scattering toward cover. Discipline dissolving into survival instinct. Exactly what she wanted. When they bunched up, they protected each other. When they scattered, they became individual targets. Kira shifted aim. Found another figure stumbling through the snow. Fired. 10 remaining. She's flanking us, someone screamed. No, she's still in the building. Then what the hell killed Brennan and Costa? Confusion. Fear. The two most valuable commodities in combat. Kira had plenty of both to distribute. Titan emerged from the snow behind a mercenary who had separated from the group. The man never saw him coming, never heard him, never knew death was 3 feet behind him until it arrived. 9 remaining. Titan melted back into the storm. A shadow among shadows, a predator in his element. The training he'd received, the instincts he'd honed, the bond he'd formed with the woman in the checkpoint. All of it came together now. All of it served one purpose: elimination. Webb's voice cut through the chaos. It's the dog, the K9 unit. It's hunting us. Finally, recognition. But recognition came too late. Kira fired again. Another mercenary fell. 8 remaining. Titan struck from a different angle. Silent, lethal. Gone before anyone could react. 7 remaining. The survivors clustered together, backs to each other. Rifles pointed outward. A defensive circle designed to prevent exactly the kind of attacks that were decimating them. Standard anti-ambush formation. Kira had trained against it 100 times. She knew exactly how to break it. Her hand found the concrete floor again. A new signal. Circle and harass. Do not commit. Draw them out. 400 meters had become 50. Titan was close now. Close enough to see the fear in their eyes. He began running harassment patterns, appearing at the edge of visibility, just close enough for them to see a black shape in the snow, then vanishing before they could aim properly. There, 9 o'clock. Rifles swung left. Nothing. 3 o'clock now. Rifles swung right. Empty snow. How is it moving that fast? The psychological effect was devastating. Kira watched them unravel through her scope, watched their formation loosen as soldiers rotated to track Titan's phantom movements, watched them burn ammunition firing at shadows. She selected her next target, a mercenary who had separated slightly from the group, chasing one of Titan's feints. Fatal mistake. Her shot dropped him mid-step. 6 remaining. Webb was screaming now, trying to maintain order, trying to rally his men. But panic had taken hold. The professional mercenaries who had surrounded the checkpoint with such confidence were now fighting for survival. Against a woman they'd mocked, and a dog they'd dismissed. The snow continued to fall, the wind continued to howl, and somewhere in the darkness a partnership forged in ice and trust continued to prove them all wrong. Kira allowed herself one brief moment of satisfaction. They'd called her weak, questioned her capabilities, laughed at the idea that a woman and a dog could matter in combat. Now 8 of them were dead, and the night was far from over. She touched the wolf emblem on her glove, the symbol of everything she'd become, everything she'd earned. Then she raised her rifle and went back to work. The storm had become a living thing. It breathed through the trees with a voice that drowned out gunfire. It moved with purpose, shifting walls of snow that turned the battlefield into a maze of white and shadow. It chose sides, and tonight it had chosen Kira. 6 mercenaries remained. Webb had pulled them into a tight defensive cluster near the tree line. Backs together, rifles pointed outward, a formation designed to prevent exactly the kind of attacks that had killed 8 of their companions in under 4 minutes. Kira watched them through her scope from a new position. She'd abandoned the checkpoint entirely, using the chaos to relocate to a shallow depression 50 meters south. The snow had already begun covering her tracks, invisible again. Through the scope, she could see Webb's face. Even in the darkness, even through the storm, she recognized the expression. Not fear exactly, something worse. Uncertainty. Dominic Webb had spent 30 years as one of the most effective operators in Special Forces history. He'd faced insurgents in 3 different countries, survived ambushes that should have killed him a dozen times over. Built a reputation as a man who could not be surprised. Tonight he'd been surprised, and he was trying to understand how. "Sound off," Webb commanded. His voice carried the forced calm of a leader who knew his men were watching. "Who's left?" "Reeves, I'm good. Patterson, functional. Dominguez, took a graze, but I can fight. Kowalski, here. Burke, still breathing." 5 voices, plus Webb himself. 6 total. Half their original force eliminated in less than 5 minutes. Kira processed the information. Reeves was still alive. The traitor who had sold out her team. The man responsible for 2 dead soldiers and 2 more fighting for their lives in a hospital she hoped they'd reach by now. Part of her wanted to put a round through his skull right now. End it. Justice served. But emotion was still a luxury. The mission came first. Webb was talking again. "The dog is working in coordination with her. Classic pincer tactics. She engages from range while it eliminates targets of opportunity at close quarters." "How is that possible?" Patterson demanded. "Dogs don't think like that." "This one does." Webb's voice had gone cold. "The Alaska program. I dismissed it as a waste of resources when I was still in command. Looks like I was wrong?" Reeves shifted nervously. "So what do we do?" "We stop acting like prey." Webb pulled something from his tactical vest, a small device about the size of a smartphone. "I came prepared for the possibility that they'd send someone from that program after us." Even from 50 meters away, Kira felt her stomach tighten. She recognized the device. An acoustic deterrent, military grade, designed to emit high-frequency sound waves that would incapacitate canine units without affecting human hearing. The technology had been developed for crowd control, but adapted for tactical applications. Webb had done his homework. "This puts out a frequency that will scramble the dog's neural processing," Webb explained. "Disorientation, loss of coordination, possibly seizures if we're lucky. Effective range is about 200 meters. And the woman, without her dog, she's just one sniper against 6 trained operators." Webb's confidence was returning. "We spread out, use the trees for cover, advance on multiple vectors. She can't watch every direction at once." Kira's mind raced. If Webb activated that device, Titan would be compromised. Their coordination would shatter. The advantage that had allowed them to eliminate 8 targets would evaporate. She needed to end this before that happened. Her finger found the trigger. She had a clear shot at Webb. 60 meters. No wind adjustment needed at this range. She could take him now. Cut the head off the snake. But even as she began to squeeze, movement in her peripheral vision stopped her. Titan. He'd emerged from the storm 20 meters behind the mercenary cluster, silent as death, positioning for another attack. If she fired now, the mercenaries would scatter. Some toward her, some toward Titan. In the chaos, Webb might activate the device before she could stop him. She needed to coordinate. Her hand left the trigger and found the ground. A new pattern. Hold position. Target priority alpha. Wait for my shot. The vibration traveled through frozen earth. Titan received it, understood it. His steady gaze locked onto Webb. Primary target identified. Kira reacquired Webb in her scope, drew a slow breath, began her squeeze. Webb's thumb moved toward the activation button. Time slowed. Kira knew what that device would do to Titan. She'd read the classified reports during her Alaska training. High-frequency acoustic deterrents didn't just disorient military dogs. They caused pain, seizures, in extreme cases, permanent neurological damage. Titan was 40 meters away, well within the device's effective range. If Webb pressed that button, her partner would suffer, might never recover, might die. The calculation took a fraction of a second. Kira adjusted her aim. She'd been targeting Webb's head, a kill shot, clean and final. But Deadman's fingers could still twitch, could still press buttons. She needed him alive, needed his hand away from that device. She fired. The round caught Webb in the right shoulder. Not a kill shot. She'd aimed for his hand, but the wind had pushed the bullet high. He spun with the impact, the device flying from his grip into the snow. A scream of rage and pain echoed through the storm. But the button remained unpressed. Titan remained unharmed. For now. "Contact south," someone screamed. Rifles swung toward her position, but Titan was already moving. He exploded from the darkness like a black missile, a blur of fury targeting the nearest mercenary. The man managed half a scream before Titan's jaws found his throat. Burke went down. 5 remaining. The formation shattered. Mercenaries scattered toward cover, firing wildly into the storm. Muzzle flashes strobed through the snow like lightning. Rounds snapped through the air around Kira's position. She was already moving, rolling left, finding a new depression behind a snow-covered boulder. Her scope found another target. Kowalski stumbling through knee-deep drifts. She fired, 4 remaining. Titan had vanished again, melted back into the white. The surviving mercenaries couldn't track him, couldn't see him, could only hear the screams of their companions being eliminated one by one. "Where is it?" Dominguez was spinning in circles, rifle jerking from shadow to shadow. "Where the hell is it?" Patterson grabbed his arm. "Stay focused. Watch your sectors." "My sectors, it's everywhere." Kira tracked Dominguez through her scope. The man was panicking, burning ammunition, breaking discipline. She didn't waste a bullet on him. Titan would handle it. Seconds later, a dark shape burst from the snow behind Dominguez. The mercenary's rifle came up too late. Way too late. 3 remaining. Patterson and Reeves had clustered together near a massive pine tree. Webb was 10 meters away, clutching his wounded shoulder, trying to locate the acoustic device he'd dropped. The device. Kira needed to find it before Webb did. Destroy it. Remove the threat to Titan permanently. She scanned the snow around Webb's position through her scope. Nothing visible. The device was small, probably buried already under fresh accumulation. Webb was crawling now, searching with his good hand, blood darkening the snow beneath him. Kira adjusted her aim. She could end him now. 1 shot to the head. Mission complete. But something stopped her. Not mercy. She had no mercy left for traitors. Information. Webb had mentioned her father, had implied he knew something about Thomas Mercer's disappearance. If she killed him now, that information died with him. The mission was to capture Webb alive if possible. Possible had seemed unlikely when she was outnumbered 14-1. Now, with only 3 enemies remaining, possible had become probable. Her hand found the ground again. New signal. Disengage. Hold perimeter. Prevent escape. Titan received the command. Understood it. He stopped hunting, started containing. Kira keyed her radio. Hawk status on extraction. Static. Then Dawson's voice broken by interference. 40 minutes out. Storm's breaking up. Birds are inbound. I need Webb alive. A pause. Copy that. Can you hold? I can do better than hold. She killed the transmission and began moving toward the tree line. Time to finish this. The snow crunched beneath her boots as she approached the mercenary position. Rifle up. Scope active. Every sense alert for movement. Patterson saw her first. Contact front. His rifle came up. Kira dropped behind a fallen log as rounds shredded the bark above her head. Snow and wood chips rained down on her position. She couldn't see Reeves, couldn't see Webb. Only Patterson advancing toward her through the trees. He was good, moving from cover to cover, keeping his profile low, maintaining fire discipline, a professional doing professional work. But he was focused entirely on her. He'd forgotten about Titan. The Black Shepherd emerged from the darkness behind Patterson like a nightmare given form. No sound, no warning, just sudden, violent contact. Patterson's scream cut short almost immediately. Two remaining. Kira rose from cover and advanced. Her rifle tracked left to right, searching for Reeves. She found him. He was standing next to a burning pile of debris. One of the incendiaries from earlier had ignited some dry timber. The flames cast dancing shadows across the snow, creating pockets of light and darkness. Reeves had his rifle trained directly at her chest. "Don't move, Mercer." Kira stopped. Assessed. 30 meters between them. His finger was on the trigger. Even if she fired first, his dying reflex might pull that trigger. At this range, she wouldn't survive the exchange. "Reeves." Her voice was steady. "Put the weapon down." "So you can shoot me?" He laughed, bitter and hollow. "I don't think so. You're the last one standing. Webb's wounded. Your team is gone. Extraction is 40 minutes out from my side. You've got nothing. I've got you at gunpoint. That's something." Kira kept her rifle raised. Stalemate. Neither could move without triggering the other. "Why?" she asked. The question she'd been carrying since she'd heard his voice on Webb's radio. "Two of our people are dead because of you. Martinez and Cooper. You served with them. You trained with them." "Why?" Reeves's jaw tightened. "You wouldn't understand. Try me. $5 million. The words came out flat, emotionless. That's what Webb offered. $5 million to provide operational intelligence, routes, schedules, personnel movements. He shook his head. "Do you know what a sergeant first class makes 60 grand a year? After 15 years of service, 15 years of getting shot at, watching friends die, coming home to a country that doesn't give a damn. So you sold us out for money. I sold out for my family." Real emotion now. Anger and something that might have been shame. "I've got 3 kids, Mercer. A mortgage I can't afford. A wife who's been waiting for me to come home for the last decade. What was I supposed to do? Keep sacrificing everything for a government that treats us like disposable assets?" "Martinez had a daughter," Kira said quietly. "She's 6 years old. She's never going to see her father again because of you." Reeves flinched, just slightly, but she saw it. "I didn't know they'd hit the logging camp that hard. Webb said it would be clean. Capture, not kill. Webb lied. That's what traitors do." "I'm not a traitor. You sold classified information to an enemy operative. You got American soldiers killed. What would you call it?" Reeves's hands were shaking now, the rifle wavering slightly. "I call it survival. I call it looking out for my own when nobody else would." "Your own," Kira's voice hardened. "We were your own Reeves, your unit, your brothers and sisters in arms. We would have died for you. Some of us did." Silence stretched between them. The fire crackled. The wind howled. Somewhere in the darkness, Titan waited. Kira could feel him out there, patient, ready, waiting for her signal. "Put the gun down," she said again. "Come back with me. Face a court-martial. Take responsibility for what you've done. And spend the rest of my life in Leavenworth." Reeves shook his head. "I'd rather die here." "That can be arranged." The voice came from behind Reeves. "Webb." The colonel emerged from the shadows. His right arm hung useless at his side, blood still seeping through his fingers where he clutched the wound. But his left hand held a pistol, and that pistol was pointed at Reeves's back. "Colonel." Reeves's confusion was evident. "What are you doing are cutting losses." Webb's voice was ice. "You've become a liability, Colton. Captured soldiers talk, especially when they're facing life in prison." "I wouldn't talk. I'd never—" The pistol barked once. Reeves staggered forward, looked down at the red spreading across his chest, then collapsed face first into the snow. Kira's rifle was already tracking toward Webb, but she froze when she saw what he was holding in his wounded hand. The acoustic device. His thumb was on the activation button. "I found it," Webb said, almost conversational. "Took some digging, but I found it. You shoot me, you're dead. True, but if I activate this device, your dog is incapacitated, and then we're one-on-one. I like those odds better." Kira's mind raced. She couldn't let him activate that device. Titan was somewhere behind her. Close. Too close to the effective radius. What do you want, Webb? I want to walk out of here. Take my cargo across the border. Disappear. Can't let that happen. Then your dog dies, and probably you too eventually. Webb smiled, cold and empty. I've been doing this for 30 years, Mercer. I've killed better operators than you before breakfast. Maybe, but you've never fought someone with nothing to lose. Everyone has something to lose. Not me. Kira's voice went flat. You mentioned my father, Thomas Mercer. You said you know what happened to him. Webb's smile widened. I do. Then you know that I've spent 16 years believing he was dead. 16 years of grief, of anger, of wondering why he left. She took a step forward. You can't threaten someone who's already lost everything that matters. Brave words, but I notice you haven't pulled the trigger. Because I want answers. What do you know about my father? Webb studied her for a long moment, the pistol still aimed at her chest, the acoustic device still clutched in his wounded hand. Your father was a patriot, he said finally, one of the best intelligence operatives the Marine Corps ever produced. When he disappeared 16 years ago, the official story was killed in action. Body unrecoverable. I know the official story. The official story was a lie. Webb's eyes gleamed. Thomas Mercer didn't die. He was extracted, given a new identity, inserted into a deep cover assignment that's been running ever since. Kira's heart stopped. You're lying. I'm many things, Sergeant, but I'm not a liar. Your father is alive, has been this whole time, working undercover in Syria as we speak. The world tilted. 16 years. 16 years of mourning a man who wasn't dead. 16 years of growing up without a father who was out there somewhere. Alive. Breathing. Choosing to stay away. Why? Her voice cracked. Why would he do that? Because the mission required it. Because some secrets are worth more than family. Webb lowered his pistol slightly. I know where he is, Mercer. The exact location. I have access to files that would lead you right to him. And you'd give me that information out of the goodness of your heart. Out of self-interest. You let me walk, I tell you everything. Your father's location, his cover identity, how to contact him without blowing his operation. Webb shrugged with his good shoulder. Fair trade. Kira's finger trembled on the trigger. She could end this now. Kill Webb. Complete the mission. Let her father remain a ghost. Or she could let a traitor walk. Let him sell secrets that would get more Americans killed. All for the chance to find a man who'd abandoned her 16 years ago. The choice should have been easy. It wasn't. The cargo you're transporting, she said slowly. What is it? Webb hesitated. Tell me, or this conversation ends with a bullet. A list, Webb admitted. Names and locations of American intelligence operatives embedded in hostile territories throughout the Middle East and Asia. 237 agents, worth $50 million to the right buyer. 237. 237 men and women whose lives hung in the balance. Who would die if that list reached enemy hands? Including if Webb was telling the truth, her father. If you sell that list, Kira said, my father dies anyway, along with 236 others. Not necessarily. I could remove his name from the list before the sale, a gesture of good faith. You expect me to believe that? I expect you to weigh your options. Webb's smile returned. Kill me, the list disappears into whatever dead drop I've arranged. My buyers retrieve it. Everyone dies. Let me walk, I remove your father's name. He lives. You get a chance to find him someday. Kira's scope never wavered from Webb's center mass. The fire was dying behind him, the shadows growing longer. And somewhere in those shadows, Titan waited. She remembered Dawson's words from 2 years ago, back in Alaska, standing in the snow after a particularly brutal training exercise. The hardest missions aren't the ones where you might die. They're the ones where you have to choose between two impossible options, where either path leads to loss. She'd asked him what to do in those situations. You choose the mission, always, because the mission is bigger than any one person, bigger than your pain, bigger than your hope. He'd met her eyes. Even when it costs you everything. The mission. 237 lives, including a father she'd never stopped loving, never stopped missing, never stopped hoping somewhere deep inside might still be alive. Now she knew he was, and she had to choose. Titan. Her voice was soft, but Titan heard it. Execute. The black shepherd exploded from the darkness. Webb's eyes went wide. His thumb jammed down on the acoustic device. A high-pitched whine filled the air, painful even to human ears at this range. Titan stumbled. His coordination faltered. His attack trajectory wavered. The sound was scrambling his neural processing exactly as Webb had promised. But Titan didn't stop. He'd been trained for pain, trained for adversity, trained to complete the mission no matter the cost. He hit Webb at 3/4 speed instead of full. Still enough force to knock the man off his feet. The acoustic device flew from his grip and disappeared into the snow. Webb's pistol came up. Kira fired. The round caught him in the forearm. The pistol dropped. Webb screamed. Titan was on top of him now, jaws inches from his throat, eyes blazing with feral intensity despite the disorientation still affecting his systems. "Call him off!" Webb screamed. "Call him off!" Kira approached slowly, rifle still trained on Webb's head. "The list. Where is it?" "USB drive. Inner pocket. Left side of my vest. Take it. Just call off the dog." Kira knelt beside Webb, found the pocket, retrieved a small black USB drive, no larger than her thumb. 237 lives in the palm of her hand. "Titan, hold!" The shepherd's jaws didn't close, but they didn't retreat either. He held web-pinned teeth pressed against flesh, waiting. "Now," Kira said quietly, "you're going to tell me everything you know about my father." "You got what you wanted. Let me go." "I got the list. I don't have answers." She pressed the rifle barrel against Webb's forehead. "Start talking." Webb laughed, bitter and broken. "You won't kill me. You need me. I'm the only one who knows where Thomas Mercer is. Maybe, but I can make the next few minutes extremely painful." She glanced at Titan. "My partner hasn't eaten today, and he's very upset about that noise you made." Webb's laughter died. Titan growled, low and menacing. "All right." Webb's bravado crumbled. "All right. Your father is currently embedded with a Syrian militia group near Aleppo. His cover identity is a Canadian journalist named David Morrison. He's been running intelligence operations for the CIA for the past 16 years. How do I contact him?" "You don't. His cover is airtight. Any attempt to reach him could compromise 16 years of work and get him killed." "Then how would I verify any of this?" "The files." Webb's eyes flicked to the USB drive. "Everything's on there. Not just the active agent list. Archives, personnel records, operation summaries." He paused. "Your father's entire history is documented, including a letter he wrote before going under. A letter to his daughter." Kira's breath caught. A letter. 16 years ago, her father had written her a letter, explained everything, said goodbye, and she'd never seen it. "The letter was classified," Webb continued, "locked in CIA archives. But I had access, made copies of everything." His smile was thin-pained. "Check the drive. It's there, along with a recent photograph, taken 6 months ago. He's older now, gray hair, but you'll recognize him." Kira stared at the drive in her hand. Everything she'd wanted to know. Everything she'd spent 16 years wondering about. Right there, waiting to be discovered. She slipped the drive into her pocket. "Titan, release." The shepherd stepped back from Webb, still alert, still ready, but no longer pressing teeth against flesh. Webb sagged into the snow. "You got what you wanted. Now let me walk." "No. We had a deal." "We had nothing." Kira's voice went cold. "You're a traitor. You've sold secrets that got Americans killed. You tried to sell a list that would have executed 237 more." She keyed her radio. "Hawk, target secured. Ready for extraction." Dawson's voice crackled back. "Birds are 5 minutes out. Outstanding work, Mercer." Webb's face contorted with rage. "You lying. I never lied. I never agreed to let you walk. I asked questions. You answered." Kira smiled without warmth. "Thanks for the information. I'll tell everyone about your father. I'll blow his cover. He'll die because of you." You could try, but you'd be confessing to stealing classified intelligence, to selling secrets to foreign powers, to conspiracy to commit espionage on a massive scale. Kira shook her head. No one will believe you. And even if they did, you'll be in a supermax facility with no communication privileges for the rest of your natural life. Webb stared at her. The hatred in his eyes burned hot enough to melt snow. This isn't over, Mercer. Yes, it is. She turned away from him, faced the trees, the storm, the darkness. For you, anyway. In the distance, she could hear helicopter rotors cutting through the wind, extraction inbound. But Kira wasn't boarding. Not yet. She stood at the edge of the landing zone, staring into the darkness beyond the tree line. The list was secured. Webb was captured. The mission should have been complete. But something gnawed at her. The USB drive in her pocket, the letter from her father, the photograph Webb had mentioned. 16 years of questions, finally within reach. Titan pressed against her leg. His coordination was returning slowly, but she could still see the effects of the acoustic device in his movements. The slight wobble when he walked, the way his head tilted as if fighting vertigo. He needed rest, medical attention, time to recover. You did good, boy. She knelt beside him, running her hand through his fur. You did so good. His tail moved weakly. Once, twice. Recognition, trust, partnership. Even now, even damaged, he was still with her. The helicopters grew louder. Lights appeared through the snow. Extraction was here. Kira looked down at Titan, at the partner who had fought through pain and disorientation to complete the mission, who had never hesitated, never faltered, never stopped. Let's go home, she said quietly. They walked toward the lights together, two shadows against the snow, partners until the end. The helicopter's rotors beat a steady rhythm against the thinning storm. Kira sat in the cargo bay with her back against the cold metal wall. Titan lay at her feet, his head resting on her boot. The acoustic device had affected him more than she'd initially realized. His coordination was returning, but slowly. The veterinary team at base would need to examine him thoroughly. Across from her, Webb sat handcuffed to a reinforced seat. Two armed soldiers flanked him. His wounds had been field-dressed, but blood still seeped through the bandages on his shoulder and forearm. His face was pale from blood loss, but his eyes remained sharp. Watching her, always watching. The USB drive felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in her pocket. Through the helicopter's window, Kira could see the first hints of gray on the eastern horizon. Dawn approaching, the longest night of her life finally ending, or maybe just beginning. Her radio crackled, Dawson's voice cutting through the engine noise. Mercer, sit rep. Package secured, en route to base. One friendly wounded. She glanced at Titan. K9 unit took acoustic damage. Requesting veterinary assessment on arrival. Already arranged. Outstanding work tonight. A pause. The list. Secured. Her hand moved unconsciously to her pocket. All 237 names accounted for. Copy that. Debrief in 4 hours. Get some rest. Rest. Kira almost laughed. She hadn't slept in 36 hours. Her body was running on adrenaline and willpower. Every muscle ached. The graze wound on her thigh throbbed with each heartbeat. Her hands trembled slightly from exhaustion and cold. But sleep felt impossible. Not with the drive in her pocket. Not with Webb's revelations echoing in her mind. Your father is alive. 3 words that had shattered 16 years of carefully constructed grief. She'd built her entire adult life on the foundation of that loss. Joined the military because her father had served. Pushed herself to excel because he never got the chance to see her grow up. Become a warrior because warriors were what the Mercer family produced. All of it built on a lie. Thomas Mercer hadn't died serving his country. He'd abandoned his family for his country. There was a difference, a profound, devastating difference. The helicopter banked left, beginning its descent toward the forward operating base. Through the window, Kira could see the lights of the compound cutting through the pre-dawn darkness. Safety, medical attention, warm food and dry clothes. None of it mattered. Only the drive. Only the truth. The landing was smooth. Professional. The moment the skids touched ground, activity erupted around them. Medics rushed toward the helicopter. Security personnel moved to secure Webb. Someone was shouting orders about prisoner processing. Kira ignored all of it. She knelt beside Titan, running her hands over his fur, checking his eyes, watching for signs of neurological damage. Easy, boy, we're home. Titan's tail moved, weak but present, still fighting, still with her. A veterinary technician appeared at her side, young, earnest, obviously intimidated by the blood-covered operator kneeling in the cargo bay. Staff Sergeant Mercer, I'm here for the K9 unit. Kira stood slowly, every joint protesting. He took an acoustic hit, high-frequency deterrent device. About 8 minutes of exposure before I could neutralize it. The technician winced. That's significant. We'll need to run a full neurological workup. Whatever he needs. He'll need to stay in the medical facility for observation, at least 48 hours. Kira looked down at Titan, at the partner who had fought beside her through the impossible, who had taken damage to protect her, who had never hesitated, never faltered, never stopped. Can I stay with him? The technician blinked. Ma'am, in the facility, can I stay with him while he recovers? I suppose that could be arranged. It's not standard protocol, but arrange it. The technician nodded quickly and gestured for assistance. 2 more handlers appeared with a stretcher designed for large dogs. They lifted Titan carefully, professionally. His eyes found Kira's as they carried him away. I'll be there, she thought. I'm not leaving you. His tail moved again. Understanding, trust, always trust. Kira watched them carry Titan toward the medical facility. Then she turned and walked in the opposite direction, toward the command building, toward the debrief that couldn't wait 4 hours, toward answers she'd waited 16 years to find. The command building was quiet at this hour. Most personnel were either sleeping or focused on the extraction aftermath. The hallways echoed with Kira's footsteps as she made her way to the intelligence section. Her clearance got her through 3 security checkpoints without questions. Being covered in blood and carrying a USB drive worth $50 million opened doors. The intelligence analysis room was empty except for a single technician monitoring overnight communications. He looked up when Kira entered, eyes widening at her appearance. Staff Sergeant, are you? I need a secure terminal, air-gapped, no network connectivity. Ma'am? Now! The technician scrambled to comply. Within minutes, Kira was seated at an isolated workstation in a shielded room. The USB drive sat on the desk in front of her, small and innocuous. A letter from her father, 16 years old, waiting. Her hand trembled as she picked up the drive, inserted it into the terminal. Watched the files populate on the screen. Hundreds of documents, personnel files, operation summaries, intelligence assessments, the accumulated secrets of 16 years of covert operations. And there near the bottom of the list, a folder labeled Mercer T. She clicked it open. Inside were dozens of files, mission reports, medical records, psychological evaluations, photographs spanning years, and a single document titled, For Kira. She opened it. The letter was dated 16 years ago. Almost to the day. My dearest Kira, if you're reading this, something has happened that I never wanted. Either my cover has been blown or someone has decided you deserve to know the truth. Either way, I'm sorry. Sorry for the pain this will cause. Sorry for the years of silence. Sorry for everything. I want you to understand why I did what I did. Not to excuse it. Nothing can excuse abandoning your child. But maybe to explain. When I was recruited for this assignment, they told me it would be 2 years. A critical intelligence operation that required someone with my specific skills and background. I said no. I had a daughter to raise, a life to live. Secrets weren't worth losing you. They showed me what would happen if I didn't go. The lives that would be lost. The attacks that would succeed. The enemies that would grow stronger. They made me understand that sometimes one person can make the difference between thousands living and thousands dying. I still said no. Then they showed me the specific threat, a network planning operations against American families, military families, your mother, you. They had names, addresses, photographs. If I didn't go, if I didn't infiltrate and dismantle this network from within, you would have been among the targets. So I went. I told myself it would be 2 years. I would complete the mission, come home, explain everything. You were young enough that maybe you wouldn't remember the absence too clearly. Maybe we could rebuild. 2 years became 4. 4 became 8. The network was bigger than anyone realized. Cutting off one head just revealed 3 more. Every time I thought I was close to coming home, something else emerged that required my attention. I know how that sounds. I know it sounds like I chose the mission over you. And maybe I did. Maybe that makes me a coward, a bad father, a failure. But every night, Kira, every single night for 16 years, I have thought about you. Wondered who you've become. Hoped that somehow, in some way, you found happiness, despite what I did. I've kept track of you through official channels. I know you joined the military. I know you excelled. I know you've become everything I ever hoped you would be and more. I am so proud of you. I'm proud of the soldier you've become. I'm proud of the woman you've become. I'm proud that despite everything, despite losing your father before you had a chance to really know him, you've built a life of purpose and meaning. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that everything I've done, every sacrifice I've made, was ultimately about protecting you, about creating a world where you could live without fear. Maybe that's not enough. Maybe nothing could ever be enough. But it's the truth, and you deserve the truth. If circumstances ever allow, if I ever complete this mission and the threat is truly eliminated, I will find you. I will explain everything face to face. I will accept whatever judgment you render. Until then, know that you are loved, deeply, completely, eternally. Your father, Thomas. Kira read the letter 3 times. Then she closed her eyes and let the tears come. They fell silently, rolling down her cheeks, dropping onto the keyboard. 16 years of grief and anger and confusion, pouring out in the darkness of an intelligence facility thousands of miles from home. Her father was alive. He'd left to protect her. He'd stayed away to protect her. And somewhere across the world, he was still fighting, still sacrificing, still waiting for a mission that might never end. She didn't know how to feel. Rage warred with relief. Betrayal warred with understanding. The little girl who had cried herself to sleep for months after his disappearance warred with the soldier who understood that some missions required impossible choices. She'd made an impossible choice tonight. The list over Webb's deal. The mission over personal gain. Just like her father had 16 years ago. Maybe she was more like him than she'd ever realized. The thought brought fresh tears and something else. Something that might have been acceptance. A knock at the door interrupted her grief. Kira wiped her face quickly, ineffectively. The tears had left obvious tracks through the grime and blood on her cheeks. Enter! The door opened. Master Sergeant Garrett Dawson stepped inside. He took one look at her face and stopped. Kira. Hawk. He crossed the room in 3 strides, knelt beside her chair, put his weathered hand on her shoulder. What happened? She gestured at the screen, the letter still visible. Webb wasn't lying about any of it. Dawson read the letter in silence. His expression shifted as he processed the words. Understanding dawning, then something harder. Son of a bitch, he said quietly. He's alive, Hawk. All this time. 16 years. I know. Dawson's voice was heavy. I know. Kira turned to look at him. Really look. You know. I suspected. For a long time. He sighed. Your father and I served together. Before he disappeared, he was the best intelligence operative I'd ever worked with. When they told me he'd been killed, something didn't add up. The circumstances were wrong. The timing was wrong. Everything about it felt like a cover story. Why didn't you tell me, tell you what, that I had suspicions with no proof, that I thought your father might have faked his death and abandoned you for reasons I couldn't explain? Dawson shook his head. That would have been cruel. False hope is worse than grief. Is it? I don't know anymore. He stood slowly, joints creaking. 58 years of hard living making themselves known. What I do know is that you just completed an impossible mission, captured a high-value target, recovered intelligence that will save hundreds of lives, and you did it while processing information that would have broken most people. I'm not broken. No, Dawson smiled slightly. You're not. You're a lot like him, you know. Thomas, same stubborn determination, same inability to quit when things get hard. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. He pulled up a chair, sat down beside her. What are you going to do now? Kira looked at the screen, at the photograph that had been attached to her father's file. Recent Webb had said, taken 6 months ago. Thomas Mercer stared back at her from the image, older than she remembered, gray hair where there had been brown, lines around his eyes that hadn't existed when she was 12, but unmistakably her father, unmistakably alive. I don't know, she admitted. Part of me wants to find him, demand answers, make him explain 16 years of silence to my face. And the other part understands why he did it. She paused. The other part has made the same kind of choices. Tonight, putting the mission above everything else. The list over Webb's deal. Yes, Dawson nodded slowly. Webb offered you information about your father in exchange for letting him walk. You refused. How did you know? Because I know you. His voice softened. Because I've watched you for 2 years, trained you, tested you, seen what you're made of. He met her eyes. You're a soldier, Kira, a real one. Not someone who wears the uniform and goes through the motions. Someone who understands what duty actually means. Sometimes duty feels like a cage. Sometimes it is. But it's a cage we choose. That makes all the difference. They sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of the night settling around them, the magnitude of what had happened slowly becoming real. 14 enemies eliminated, 1 traitor captured, 237 lives saved, and a truth revealed that would take years to fully process. Titan, Kira said suddenly. I need to be with him. The medical facility is expecting you. I made arrangements. Thank you. He's a good partner. Dawson's voice carried something deeper, something personal. Kyle would have been proud of both of you. Kyle, Dawson's son, Titan's original handler, the ghost that connected all 3 of them across years and tragedy. I think about him sometimes, Kira admitted. Wonder what he was like, what he would think of how I've handled Titan. He was a lot like you, Dawson's voice caught slightly. Stubborn, determined, absolutely committed to his partner. When he died, I thought I'd lost everything. My son, my purpose, my reason to keep going. What changed? You did. Dawson stood, extended his hand. You showed me that Kyle's death didn't have to be meaningless, that his partnership with Titan could continue, could grow into something even stronger. He pulled her to her feet. That's his legacy, Kira. Not his death, his life. The bond he built with Titan that made it possible for you to build one too. Kira held his hand for a moment longer than necessary. Thank you, Hawk, for everything. Thank me by getting some sleep. Debrief is in 3 hours. I thought you said 4. That was before you decided to access classified intelligence without authorization. His eyes twinkled slightly. Consider this a gentle reminder that rules still exist. I'll try to remember that. You won't, but it's cute that you pretend. He released her hand. Go. Be with your partner. He needs you. Kira nodded and headed for the door. Paused at the threshold. Hawk. Yes. My father. If circumstances ever allowed. If there was a way to contact him without compromising his mission. She swallowed. Would you help me? Dawson was quiet for a long moment. I would move heaven and earth, he said finally, for both of you. Kira nodded, stepped through the door, let it close behind her. The corridor stretched ahead, empty and silent, dawn light beginning to filter through the windows at the far end. A new day, a new truth, a new beginning. The veterinary medical facility smelled like antiseptic and wet dog. Kira found Titan in a private recovery room. He lay on a padded platform IV line attached to his foreleg, monitoring equipment, tracking his vital signs. His eyes were closed when she entered, but they opened immediately at the sound of her footsteps. His tail moved, stronger now than before. Recognition, relief. Hey, boy. Kira pulled a chair beside the platform, sat down, rested her hand on his head. How are you feeling? Titan's tail moved again. His tongue emerged briefly to lick her wrist. The veterinarian appeared in the doorway. Dr. Rachel Morrison, according to her name tag. Young, professional, obviously exhausted from being called in at this hour. Staff Sergeant Mercer, he's going to be fine. The acoustic damage, temporary. The high-frequency exposure caused some disorientation and minor neural inflammation, but his scans show no permanent damage. Full recovery expected within 72 hours. Kira exhaled slowly, relief flooding through her. He's tough, Dr. Morrison continued. One of the most resilient K-9 units I've ever examined. Whatever training program produced him, it was exceptional. He is exceptional. I can see that, the veterinarian smiled. I'll leave you two alone. Call if you need anything. She departed, closing the door behind her. Silence settled over the room. Just Kira and Titan, partner and partner. I found out something tonight, Kira said softly, about my father. Titan's ears twitched forward, listening. He's alive. All this time I thought he was dead, but he's alive, working somewhere far away, doing important things. She paused. He left to protect me, just like I would have done, just like I did tonight when I chose the mission over finding him. Titan's steady gaze watched her, patient, understanding in whatever way dogs understood. I don't know how to feel about it. Happy that he's alive, angry that he left, proud that he sacrificed so much, hurt that the sacrifice included me. She laughed softly. I'm a mess. Titan shifted slightly, moved his head to rest more fully against her hand. Comfort, support. The only response he could give, the only response she needed. Dawson said you would have made Kyle proud, Kira continued. I think you make me proud too. Every day, every mission. She stroked his fur gently. I don't know what's going to happen next, whether I'll ever see my father again, whether any of this will make sense eventually. She leaned down, pressed her forehead against Titan's. But I know one thing for certain. Whatever comes, we face it together. You and me. Partners. Titan's tail moved strongly now. 3 times. 4. Agreement. Commitment. Bond. Kira stayed there for a long moment, breathing in sync with her partner, letting the events of the night slowly settle into something she could carry. Then she straightened, found a blanket in the corner, wrapped it around herself, and lay down on the floor beside Titan's platform. Close enough to touch him, close enough to know he was safe. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in 36 hours she slept. 3 weeks later, the ceremony was small, classified, held in a briefing room at Fort Liberty with only essential personnel in attendance. Kira stood at attention while the base commander read the citation. Words about exceptional valor, decisive action under fire, successful completion of a critical national security mission. Words that didn't capture what had really happened that night. Words never did. When the commander pinned the medal to her uniform, she thought about the people who should have been there. Martinez and Cooper killed in the initial ambush. The 2 wounded soldiers still recovering at Walter Reed. The 237 operatives who would never know how close they'd come to exposure and death. Her father somewhere in Syria still fighting his own endless war. Congratulations, Staff Sergeant, the commander said. Thank you, sir. She stepped back. The ceremony concluded. People began filtering out. Dawson approached her. He'd aged another year in the past 3 weeks, the weight of everything showing in his face. How does it feel? Heavy. She touched the medal absently. Everything feels heavy lately. It gets lighter, eventually. Does it? No. He smiled slightly. But we tell ourselves that anyway. Outside the briefing room, Titan waited with his handler trainee. He'd made a full recovery just as the veterinarian had predicted. His coordination was back, his alertness restored, his bond with Kira stronger than ever. When he saw her emerge, his tail began wagging, not weakly anymore, strongly, joyfully, a dog greeting his favorite person in the world. Kira knelt and buried her face in his fur. Hey, partner, miss me? His answer was a tongue across her cheek, enthusiastic and wet. She laughed, the first real laugh in 3 weeks. I'll take that as a yes. Dawson watched them from the doorway, something that might have been tears in his eyes. Kyle used to do that, he said quietly. Every time they reunited after being apart, Titan would practically knock him over. He's getting better at restraint. Barely. They walked together toward the base's main gate, Dawson's retirement ceremony was scheduled for next month, but he'd already begun transitioning to his new role as a civilian consultant for the K-9 program. Some warriors never really stopped fighting. They just found new ways to serve. "What's next for you?" Dawson asked. "Training. The program's been approved for expansion. They want me to lead the new unit." "That's a big responsibility. I had a good teacher." Dawson stopped walking, turned to face her. "Kira, whatever happens with your father, whatever you decide to do about that situation, I want you to know something." "What?" "You've already made him proud. Everything you've become, everything you've accomplished, the soldier you are, and the woman you are." He put his hand on her shoulder. "He would be proud. I'm certain of it." Kira felt the familiar sting of tears, fought them back. "How can you be certain?" "Because I'm proud," Dawson's voice roughened. "And I don't say that lightly. I've trained hundreds of soldiers, served with thousands more. You're one of the best I've ever known." He reached into his pocket, withdrew a small envelope. "This came through classified channels yesterday, from someone who heard about your mission, someone who wanted you to have this." Kira took the envelope. Her name was written on the front in handwriting she didn't recognize. Or maybe she did. Maybe somewhere deep in her memory, she remembered that handwriting from birthday cards and school notes and 1,000 small moments of childhood. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a photograph. Her father, recent, standing in front of a nondescript building somewhere that might have been anywhere. He was holding a newspaper with a date visible. 3 days ago, he was alive. He knew about her mission. And on the back of the photograph, 4 words in that familiar handwriting: "Proud of you, soldier." Kira stared at the words for a long time. Then she looked up at Dawson, then down at Titan. Her family, both of them. The old soldier who had trained her and the partner who fought beside her. "One day," she said quietly, "one day I'll find him. I know you will. And when I do, I'm going to have a lot of questions. I expect he'll have answers. He'd better." She slipped the photograph into her pocket, beside the metal, beside the USB drive she still carried like a talisman. "Until then, I have work to do. The new unit, the new unit, the new trainees, the future." She looked toward the horizon, toward the mountains, toward whatever came next. "My father spent 16 years protecting people he'd never meet, making sacrifices no one would ever know about." She paused. "I understand that now. The weight of service, the cost of duty. It's a heavy burden." "Yes," she smiled, for the first time in weeks a smile that reached her eyes. "But I'm not carrying it alone." Titan pressed against her leg. Dawson nodded slowly. 2 partners who had found each other across tragedy and time. 2 soldiers who had forged something stronger than either could have built alone. "No," Dawson agreed. "You're not." They walked together toward the gate, toward the future, toward whatever missions waited beyond the horizon. The sun was setting over Fort Liberty, golden light painting the sky, shadows lengthening across the parade ground. Kira stopped at the gate, looked back at the base where she'd proven herself, where she'd been mocked and doubted and underestimated, where she'd become who she was meant to be. They mocked the female sniper. They laughed at her partnership with a dog. They assumed she would fail because she didn't fit their expectations. They were wrong, about all of it. Kira turned away from the past, faced forward, Titan at her side, Dawson at her back. The future spread before her like an unwritten page, full of missions yet to come, full of enemies yet to face, full of impossible choices that would test everything she believed, but also full of partnership, of loyalty, of trust, full of the unbreakable bond between a woman and her K-9. "Ready, boy?" Titan's tail wagged. "Always ready, always together." Kira smiled and walked into the light.